We give tips on how to be more consistent and have more energy as a gamer. We host monthly Q&A sessions through our Patreon and leave time at the end for any viewers to ask questions about their health. Also, I want to say 4 words that are going to make you a better gamer. Make sure you subscribe. Yep, make sure you subscribe if you enjoy our content and you want to learn how you can play more and hurt less. Let's go. Oh, so we have one question
100%.
from Fam. Any tips for being consistent when it comes to gaming? This is definitely a really common question that we get. Do you want to take this?
Yeah, so we actually did a journal club on choking recently, so it's fresh in my mind. But consistency, if you're talking about performance, it's difficult. One thing we really talk about at 1HP is having routines. So if you have a set routine before you start the round, you make sure your desk is set up properly, you make sure your mouse pad is where it needs to be, then it really puts you in the right perspective and the right mindset. As you do this more often, it puts you in the right mindset of, okay, no, now it's time to perform. I'm putting my pads on, I'm getting ready to play. And as you associate those actions more and more with performance, they'll help almost kick you into that mindset. And there's a lot of different ways you can build that, but one way to start is just what was the situation when you performed well last time? Were you sleeping well? Was your nutrition on point? Did you make sure that you warmed up really well in aim lab if you're playing Valorant? Or did you spend some time in practice well if you were in League of Legends? Did you make sure that your station was set up properly? All those things really play into your consistent performance. And if you're finding that you're choking quite a bit, then it's either an attentional issue where your attention is being distracted by something in game, or your focus is being drawn into the step-by-step execution of a skill instead of just letting yourself do something you've done 1,000 times.
Exactly.
Or if it's something that's more chronic, it might be some anxiety you're dealing with regarding the game, where it's preventing you from putting attention towards those task relevant tasks that are the key to performance. So it's a very interesting question because there's so many different levels. And I would start with just, okay, when did I last perform well? How do I tease out those common factors across those times I've performed well? And then you work on replicating those, and you tend to become more consistent after that.
Yeah, another thing I'd like to add on that, Fam, if you're still here, is that it depends on what type of consistency you're trying to get, right? Like, is it mechanical consistency? I mean, obviously, overall performance is important. Performance consistency is necessary to consider, but that's built upon this idea of game knowledge and thought process and decision making consistency. And then there's also the mechanical skill consistency, and then consistency of how you behave in certain situations, right? And you can use these pre-performance routines that's been proven a lot in the research to help with consistency and how you think, right? One of the biggest things that I know Sean McCann, there's a lot of research supporting pre-performance routines, is he wants to help his athletes think in the same way every single time, so that it's automatic in how they respond to certain situations. So let's say it's a game like Valorant, and we know that if the Sova dart comes through, you want to shoot it first, but sometimes you tend to miss it because you're focused on other things. If you consistently remind yourself and make it a plan that, hey, I need to do this, or understand sort of the flow chart of what's important in terms of prioritizing in specific situations, which is why VOD review is important, so that you can flesh out consistency of ideas across different situations, so that you're not having to make the decision then and there. You've already made the decision. You already thought it out. So you're just executing. And that increases your consistency. So there's a lot of ways to approach this, right? Again, I think what you said is perfect, right? You just got to understand, one, what type of consistency you're trying to create, and then break it down to build it back up from there, and create routines for yourself to allow yourself to be more consistent in whatever respective domain, whether it be mechanics or game knowledge. Yes, what's up, Psalmist SSB? You're listening to, a Q&A for anything related to esports, health, wellness, performance. Fam, if you're still here, does that make sense, or do you have any follow-up questions? And if that doesn't make sense, we actually have, like I said, like John said, we just recorded a video about this. There's been several other videos where we talk about this as well, and you can just check our YouTube out and look for those. But yeah, happy to answer more questions. We're here probably until we don't get any more questions, or until I'm dead or tired. So if you guys have questions, we are here to answer them. We can provide you guys with some insight about what we do with pros.
We're like the help menu in a game, but as people, so it's even faster.
Exactly. So we'll give them time to ask some questions, and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, consistency is such an interesting topic in gaming, because you can easily reproduce those scenarios too. Because say, for example, you were talking about the Sova dart, if you could lab that with a friend in customs if you really wanted, and talking with that person about, okay, what if another person peeks as the dart lands? What do you do in that situation, right? It's
I think risk reward and understanding the situations.
Yeah, that's why having the VOD review, like you were talking about, is so key, and having a flow chart or almost tiering of your priority in game really makes those decisions easier.
That's pretty great. All right, we have a follow-up from Fam. Any tips to be more energetic and not sleepy during the days? You want to take that?
That one's comes back to what your sleep quality is. That's my first instinct whenever someone's talking about struggling with energy. And then once we make sure sleep is good, then we look at nutrition. Are you eating enough calories? Are you really using too much during the day? What is your calorie in, calorie out like? And then if that's all good, then we start looking at more psychosocial factors. So is there another underlying condition like a hypothyroid or something? This is obviously going in tiers, so we go for the lowest hanging fruit first. We go for the sleep first, then the food, and then we start looking at, okay, maybe there's something metabolic going on. But that's where I would start, with making sure you get at least 8 hours. You try to use blue light filters, or you get rid of your electronics for about an hour before bed. You don't have any caffeine for about 5 hours before bedtime. And if you really need it, you can always go for some melatonin supplements, making sure that you do give yourself about 8 hours of sleep, because it can be hard to wake up in the morning afterwards. Going with those first before we start reaching to some of those metabolic things. Matt, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would approach it the same way, Fam.
Yeah.
I would say there's a lot of things that are likely to affect your energy levels throughout the day, and you can think of sleep as sort of the foundational thing. If you don't get good sleep, nothing else matters, right? You're not going to feel good when you exercise, when you move. You're not going to sometimes even have the energy to eat. You just need to start with the foundation, which is sleep, and then once we get that clear, like John said, we should aim for 7.5 to 8 hours at least every single night. That's been shown to be the recommended amount from from the American Sleep Academy. To have optimal cognitive functioning and reduce those daytime spells of sleepiness. That's number one. Get enough sleep. There's all this research and ways that we can approach optimizing your sleep. But I think one of the easier things to consider are, like John said, your sleep hygiene, things before sleep, the tech, the blue light, all of those things. But outside of that too, you want to get sunlight first thing in the morning, do some more activity throughout the day. That'll help you sleep better. Number two, I would look at your nutrition as well. Seeing, are you eating enough? A lot of the times we don't realize it. We're just not eating, and we don't have enough energy to support what we're doing throughout the day. It's super undervalued, and because when we're young, we can kind of get away with it. But when you get to boomer age like myself, man, I need to eat. I get hangry. And then last, I've been told this, by every single pro or player that I've worked with. If you start regularly exercising, your energy levels are going to shoot through the roof. And think about why, right? When you exercise more regularly, whether it be resistance training, whether it be cardio or any other form of exercise, your muscles are getting more efficient, your cardiovascular system is getting more efficient. So the amount of energy that you utilize when you're just sitting there is a lot less than if you didn't exercise at all. You're completely deconditioned, right? If you just compare the two, hey, if I'm using much less energy, guess what? I'm gonna have way more energy to focus, to do everything you want to do with respect to gaming, and then you can play more consistently as a result of that. Sometimes it's just about managing your energy levels that allows you to be more consistent.
What's your number one tip for someone who's just starting out and wants to up their performance, Matt? I have a question too.
For me, it's hard to. I try to stay away from just like blanket tips, because my big thing is I just want to identify where they are across these different categories. Like, hey, how's your sleep going? How's your nutrition going? How's your regular exercise? And I have to have some good data about how they're managing those different aspects of their life. And one that's really important too is performance IQ, right? What are their beliefs and behaviors around actually getting better at the game? Do they just grind and not think about how to improve? Do they think about first principles? Like, hey, what are the basic things that you have to work on in the respective game? Like, for instance, Valorant, you might want to work on aim, so you work on aim lab, or you might want to work on, shoulder peeking, or you might want to work on better positioning, right? But each of those things have a different way that you can train it and different way you can approach it. So I guess it's hard for me to provide one clear tip, but if I did, I would say, hey, focus on getting good sleep. That's like one of the first things to start with.